Hello everyone, welcome to my tutorial on object-oriented programming in Java. Today's tutorial I'm going to talk about instance variable. We already know what a variable is, and we know that the variables can have a scope to the method, which we are calling the local variable, and outside of the methods we do have variables. Those have a scope of the class level. So let's say I defined a class, my class, and then here I have defined in I and j two variables, and then I have my method, and here I have defined another variable in k. So in this case what is happening is that this one is a local variable because this is defined within the method and its scope is just the method itself. Outside of the method it doesn't have any visibility. So we are interested in this tutorial about this type of variables which are defined outside of any method, and these variables are called instance variables. So I would like to classify again about the variables that has a scope of the class. We can define it like these two ways: variables static and non-static. The static variables are called the class level variable, and non-static variables are called the instance variables. So here int I and j are the instance variable because they are not static variables. In case of static we just write static int m. In that case this could be defined as a static variable, but here the variables do not have static written in front of those two. So in that case these are the instance variables. We'll be talking about the static variables later in the other tutorial. So now let's say I would like to define, or I would like to create a new instance. My class m1 equals new my class, and I have my class m2 equals new my class. Now you can obviously see that we have defined what we have. This is we are creating a reference, and this is we are creating a new instance. Again here we are creating a new instance m2, and here we are creating a new object of new my class. So now if you look at the stack here, m1 and then m2, m1 is referring to a object that is my class, and here I equals 0, j equals 0, and m2 is referencing another my class object which is having I equals 0, j equals 0. And remember, this is my stack and this is the heap, and we already know that the stack and the heaps are two different memory locations. The stack just keeps the references and heap keeps the objects. So now you can see that we have two different objects of my class, and both are initialized with I equals 0, j equals 0. That means if we don't initialize a variable, or if we don't assign a value to a variable, when we create a new instance, the new instance will always have the variables initialized to default value. In that case, int type will have a value 0, and then the string types will have a value of null. So this is how we are creating the new instance, and we see that how it is initialized. Now let's see like how we are going to manipulate the values of the variables. So let's say Again, I am just writing this statement again. My class m1 equals new my class, and then my class m2 equals new my class. And my class 1, this one is having I equals 0, z equals 0, and this one is having I equals 0, z equals 0. Now if I would like to change the value of this variable, how do I do? The procedure is, first we have to write the reference and then the variable name, and then we can assign a value. So let's say I'd like to change the value of this one. How do I do? For this object, my reference is m1, so I'm writing m1 and then dot. You have to put the dot, and then the variable name is I equals, let's say, 5, and then m1 dot j equals 10. In the same way, I can write m2 dot I equals 6 and m2 dot j equals 6. So what is now going to happen is that the first object will now have a value I equals 5 and j equals 10, and then the second object will have the value of I equals 6 and then value of j equals 6. So this is how we are going to access the variables of a new object created. Now let's go and see the coding. Here I have created a class, my class, and then you can see that this is declared as integer two values, int I and j, and then that I have another variable declared as string k. And then I have a test class where I have created a new instance, my class a1, and new instance of my class as a2 as well. And then I'm trying to print the accessed attribute of my class and a1.I and a1.j. So this is how I am accessing it. Reference and then dot and then the variable name. And then I'm going to print out the variable of this second instance, a2j. And then what I did, I was trying to modify the value of I and j of both reference a1 and a2, and then I'm going to print it. So now let's do that and run my program. Run as Java application. Okay, and then you can see that the first two values are 0, because we know that when we have created the new instance of my class and referencing a1, they are going to get the value initialized to 0, the instance variables, and this is what we see, 0 0. And then the same thing happens for the reference a2, and we are trying to access the variable j, and we can see that a2.j is 0. And then I'm saying like modifying I, and I'm modifying the variable I for both the references. So a1.I is 10 and a2.j equals 100, and you can see that a2j is coming as 100, and after modification this one is 10. So this is, and then there are some other prints, and then you can see that a2.I is printing as 0, okay, because I haven't changed the value of a2.I. okay, I have, for the second reference a2.j, I have assigned 100, but I didn't change the variable for I, so that's why it is printing as the default value. And then you can see that k was defined as a string variable and I haven't assigned any value to it, so that's why a2.k is printing as null. Okay, so that's it. We learned about how to manipulate the variables, instance variables of an instance or of an object, and we know that this is by writing first the reference name and then putting the dot and then accessing the variable. There are some other ways as well to access the variables, and we'll see those later on. Thank you.